Silencio vobis, gaudium magnum, habemus papam.
I announce to you that we have a Father. The world had a Father.
Amen.
Now all of a sudden he's our Holy Father, and we're pledging him our love and our allegiance and our loyalty and our prayer.
Everyone says there hasn't been anyone like him. That's what's so fascinating. And people of all faiths want to touch him.
Yeah. Well, that's an appeal too. You know, we call him the Holy Father.
Holy Father, please forgive me.
Holy Father.
You'll hear that title used quite often. This man, Bergoglio, Francis the Talking Pope, his predecessors, John Paul II, Pope Benedict, John Paul I, Pope Paul, Pope John the 23rd, Pope Pius.
You can go all the way back, folks. I'm talking centuries.
These men are replacement gods. And these men have taken upon themselves the title of Holy Father.
He wears the titles of God. He wears the title Holy Father, head of the church. He never died for the church, but he stole that title from Christ.
Finisca l'opera che lui ha incominciato, perché questo è un miracolo, il miracolo dell'unità è incominciato.
Glory, glory, glory. Tony, thank you, sir. Come on, the man asked us to pray for him. Oh, Father. Father, we answer his request. And since we know not how to pray for him as we ought, other than to agree with him in his quest and in his heart for the unity of the body of Christ. Might. And we thank you, sir. We thank God for you. And so, all of us declare together, be blessed. Once again, all together, be blessed. Amen. Amen.
Still, there are those who continue to uphold the Reformers' original beliefs.
First of all, permit me to say how much
The Pope remained calm, clearly anticipating the heckler in the back row. Mr. Paisley quoted a 16th century anti-papist slogan as furious Euro MPs threw papers at him in disgust, snatching the poster. Parliamentary President Lord Plum had no choice.
Mr. Paisley, I call you to order and I ask you to stop this disturbance.
There was another poster in his pocket for each one snatched away. The Pope, waiting with a text which spoke of Europe as the beacon of civilization, looked on with faint amusement.
Mr. Paisley, I now exclude you from this house and for the remainder of the sitting.
Mr. Paisley claims he was punched and that he later received a personal apology from the head of security for failing to protect him. The poster stated simply, John Paul II, Antichrist, a reference to the view supported by Archbishop Cranmer in Reformation times.
We want to show you some extraordinary pictures which came to us from the Vatican on what was, of course, an extraordinary day. Within hours of Pope Benedict announcing that he was to resign, take a look at this. Lightning struck St. Peter's Basilica. You can see it again now in slow motion.
Lightning struck St. Peter's Basilica twice immediately following the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI. Now, some people might not make anything of that, but lightning is something in sacred literature that almost always carries spiritual connotation. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's evil, like when Jesus referred to Satan as falling like lightning. And I can't help but think that the timing of two lightning bolts on this particular building, St. Peter's Basilica, at the Vatican at the exact time following Benedict's resignation I felt that it was mathematically improbable of chance. First, because 2 bolts. I don't, again, what do you make of coincidence and numerology? But we know that in sacred text and in Scripture, these kind of things would be interpreted as signs and omens.
At the start of Lent last year, Jorge Mario Bergoglio was just a face in the crowd. Today, Pope Francis is the most talked about person on the World Wide Web.
With days until the Holy Father makes his first ever visit to the U.S., his popularity has taken off.
We were able to walk right up to the stage yesterday, which is literally set at this point. You saw that there are thousands of seats already lined up as well. As you can imagine,
hundreds of thousands of people turned out to see and hear Pope Francis today.
It was a mammoth effort. Philadelphia transformed into an outdoor cathedral.
It's like being at the Super Bowl.
His style was different almost immediately to the thousands before him as he bowed and said,
"Vi chiedo che voi
pray for me."
And suddenly there was a connection with people. That set the tone for this papacy.
More people can actually relate to him.
Absolutely. And bring more people into the church.
More of a user-friendly pope.
Yes.
That's what we need right now.
We've needed for a while a renewed image, a renewed face of the church, and Pope Francis is giving it to us.
The one man who is winning in every poll you look at, the Pope.
His Twitter account, @Pontifex, ranks in the top 5 most searched words on the internet.
Take a look. Look who's got his very own rookie baseball card, Pope Francis.
Pope is even showing up on pizza boxes. Every trip he takes, Pope Francis has been met by adoring masses of the faithful.
This week, he's been called a Catholic rock star.
He's kind of a rock star, Times Person of the Year, the cover of Rolling Stone. Now there's even a Francis fanzine.
He's captured the imagination not just of the world's 1.2 billion Catholics, but the world itself.
I get it on the streets. I mean, everybody from the bartender to the cab driver telling me, Cardinal Dolan, we love this guy.
He's been called the People's Pope.
It's the Pope!
Viva el Papa! Viva la Chiesa Católica!
The papacy is saying, I'm a follower of so-and-so, to see people going out and giving the rock star treatment and fawning and fainting and screaming and everything when a pope goes by. I mean, he's just a man.
Humility has made the former Jorge Bergoglio a star far beyond the Catholic Church.
And became one of the most popular religious leaders of our time.
You can't be a Catholic without acknowledging Pope Francis as the representative of God on earth.
Chi ritiene di poter avere un rapporto personale, diretto, immediato con Gesù Cristo, al di fuori della comunione e della meditazione della Chiesa. Sono tentazioni pericolose, sono tentazioni dannose, sono, come diceva il grande Paolo VI, dicotomie assurde.
Pope Francis has worked tirelessly toward a new world religion in which all denominations are brought together as one. If you look at Francis's outreach over the past 3 years, and specifically in 2016, you'll find somebody who has openly condemned evangelical Christianity and the belief that you must have a personal relationship with Jesus. He has openly warned that this belief is dangerous. He has also equated the spread of the gospel under evangelical Christianity to jihadism. In the meantime, he has done quite a bit of outreach to every other religion in the entire world. Why is this happening? The extent of Francis's outreach to other denominations in 2016 alone has been mind-boggling. In February, Francis held an emergency meeting with Patriarch Kirill of Russia for the first time since the 1054 Schism. Kirill then went directly to Antarctica, where he performed a bizarre religious ceremony consecrating the land and water surrounding the continent. Francis has also done outreach to Patriarch Bartholomew of Turkey, in which both leaders voiced support for the migrant crisis and called for more migrants to enter Europe. In May, Francis met with Al-Azhar of Egypt, who is the head of Sunni Islam. In January, Francis became the third pontiff ever to visit Rome's major synagogue. He has also hosted Jewish religious and political leaders at the Vatican. In June, Francis outreached to the Armenians. In July, Pope Francis visited Poland and told all of the young people in the audience to, quote, believe in a new humanity.
¿Cuál, María? Una maestra de vida espiritual. O então, una santinha a quem se recorre para obter favores abaixo.
The Pope sat before the image of the Virgin and recited the prayer that is most notably known in Fatima, the Rosary.
She's called the United Nations International Pilgrim Statue of Fatima and travels around the world.
I've seen people who break down in tears as soon as they look at the face.
The faithful believe they're seeing the face of Jesus' beloved Mother Mary.
The theologians say it's called the aura of the Mother of God around it. That means the Mother of God's presence is with that image in such a way that you can look at other images of Our Lady and get your fill.
It is one of the 4 original statues made under the guidance of Sister Lucia, the oldest of the 3 children.
The 3 children, Lucia, Jacinta, and Francisco, said they saw an apparition of Mary while herding sheep near the village of Fatima, Portugal, May 13, 1917, and she revealed 3 secrets to them, including the prediction of World Wars I and II. And this is the face Lucia described.
When you're looking at it, you feel her presence. You can get your fill at looking at other beautiful images, but you cannot get your fill at looking at this. You just want to look, and look again.
Just a Mary shrine here, Mary shrine there, Mary shrine here, everywhere.
Why do people praise and worship Mary, whom Jesus was born of? A famous Catholic bishop and writer, Alphonsus Liguori, explained in his writings that it is far effective to pray to Mary than to Christ.
In the Franciscan Chronicles, it is related that Brother Leo once saw a red ladder, on the summit of which was Jesus Christ, and a white one on top of which was his most holy mother. And he saw some who tried to ascend the red ladder, and they mounted a few steps and fell. They tried again and again fell. They were then advised to go and try the white ladder, and by that one they easily ascended. For our Blessed Lady stretched out her hand and helped them, so they got safely to heaven.
The story, which was made by the exuberant imagination, sounded plausible. Although it was a man-made story, Pope Gregory XVI canonized Liguori as a saint, and Pope Pius IX declared him a doctor of the Catholic Church. Now Catholics are taught that it is better to pray to Mary, who is merciful and understands us.
We must never go to our Lord Jesus except through Mary, using her intercession and good standing with Him. We must never be without her when praying to Jesus.
The plausible logic that Jesus cannot refuse Mary's request because she is his mother is shown well even through the image of Mary and baby Jesus. In most cases, Jesus is nested in Mary's arms as a baby. This downgrades Jesus to a little baby who is always dependent on Mary and lets people think that he can do nothing without Mary. They call Mary the Mother of God, which implies that she is above God. Mary as a female is merely a creation who was chosen to conceive Jesus. Mary worship of the Catholic Church reminds us of the mother-child worship of ancient Babylon. Just as Semiramis artfully spread the mother-child worship throughout Babylon when she ruled it over instead of her son Tammuz, the Catholic Church now makes people worship Mary, not God, by accepting the mother-child worship from Babylon.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is...
There is no trace of suffering or even joy in this Mary's face. But it is not the alabaster emptiness of her gaze these people see as they pray. It is the Mary whose pain at the loss of her son, Jesus Christ, resembles their own.
Mary's role for us as Christians is humanizing. It's somebody that we can relate to.
20% of all Roman Catholic places of worship in the United States, nearly 4,000, are named for Mary.
Shortly after the Council of Ephesus, which was in 431, when they declared her to be the Theotokos, the God-bearer, Mother of God. And then everything changes, and she starts to appear enthroned with a child on her lap, with angels and saints around her. That is when she becomes important.
By the Middle Ages and Renaissance, paintings of Mary could be read for symbols of her holiness.
Her outer mantle is blue, and underneath she usually, not always, has red robes.
She wears a dark blue coat, and she stands on the half moon. There's a dark blue coat, and she stands on the half moon. She is the mother of all gods.
So, the ancient religion of Babylon, they all have one thing in common: the sacred feminine. The sacred feminine. The sacred feminine. Ishtar the Babylonians, Tyre the Buddhism, Fatima of Muhammad, Sophia the Gnostics, Shekinah to the Kabbalist Jew, Mary to the Catholic, and Shakti to the Hindu. These all have one thing in common: the sacred feminine. And the sacred feminine is going to take you back to the source of light, because the light that resides in that place that Plato talked about, you need a path to get back to that light. Listen, this is important. She is the one to take you to that light. Now, I'm going to give you a guess. Tell me this morning, who do you think that light is? You remember what this subject's all about? Lucifer. He's the light bearer.
There's a wind blowing through this church today.
And that wind comes from Lucifer?
Yes, it is. That has brought him into the house, and he's now in power. No doubt about it, Lucifer is the prince, and he has now a place within the central citadel of the church.
A lot of priests like to perform themselves the satanic masses around Rome, and they perform them in the area where usually the Pope goes on holiday, near Castel Gandolfo, in the area where you have also Lake Nemi, in those forests around there. They perform these black masses, and there is a Catholic priest who act as a satanic priest, because the moment in which they act as satanic priest is the moment in which they can really liberate themselves of other perversions. They can do drugs, they can go with women, with men, with everything, and they can do all kinds of things. So the sex cults are very powerful. Like, for example, CNN is showing that at the terminal station there is a lot of prostitution from minors, from young kids. Well, there was a scandal here in Italy at a certain point in 2013, I think it was June 2013, it went on the news for 2 days, then it was erased. They go into this My Bar and in these places around the Termini station to pick up these young kids. And then they used to have these ambulances, these fake ambulances parked in front of Termini station, and they used to pick up these young Romanian kids, 14-year-old kids, and bring them directly into the Vatican.
And so we have to understand that there is a Luciferian faction, a very strong Luciferian faction within the Holy See, not exclusive to the Holy See. This is a dark brotherhood that exists. These are the mystery adepts that have existed. They're following a lineage that goes back hundreds of years. Actually, that goes back to the Tower of Babel.
Once upon a time, a long time ago, there lived a man named Nimrod. Nimrod was the great-grandson of Noah. He was the most popular man on the earth at the time. Matter of fact, he was the king of the then-known world. He was responsible for building the cities of Babel, and the Tower of Babel, and the city of Nineveh, amongst others. Well, all that being aside, Nimrod, no doubt, had tremendous influence among the people that he was with. And what happened was he had this uncanny reputation of strength. He created great armies, and he was the ruler of the then-known world right after the flood. He was full of idolatry and covetousness, drunkenness, and rebelliousness towards God. And he had a phenomenal ability to deceive. Matter of fact, I suppose he was much like, I guess, an early politician 4,000 years ago. But Nimrod married a woman named Semiramis. Now, Semiramis and Nimrod became basically king and queen of the then-known world. Well, at some point, Nimrod dies, and he became deified. He was the very first person that was ever deified on planet Earth, and they made him the sun god, which ended up being Baal. The word Baal in your scriptures can be traced back to Nimrod. So it's an interesting reality of history. When you see Baal and Ashtaroth, you're ended up coming all the way back to this story of Nimrod and Semiramis. And so Baal is now ruling the universe as the sun god, and somehow luck has it, through the Babylonian legend, that Semiramis gets pregnant by the rays of the sun of her deceased husband, Nimrod. And she gives birth to a young baby boy named Tammuz.
Semiramis, Nimrod's wife, insisted that Nimrod became the sun god. She cut Nimrod's dead body into pieces and sent them to each tribe of Babylon. People regarded the place where a part of Nimrod was buried as sacred. She also claimed that Nimrod was reincarnated as her son. As Semiramis ruled over Babylon in place of her young son Tammuz, she maneuvered people into worshiping her. Monuments of Semiramis carrying her child Tammuz in her arms were set up all over Babylon, along with various images symbolizing the sun god. The sun worship and the mother-child worship, which was a scheme devised by Semiramis, put down roots as a religion of Babylon. Idolatry stemmed from Babylon, spread to many countries after the Tower of Babel collapsed. It is because when the Babylonians were scattered over the whole world, they brought the sun worship and the mother-child worship. The sun worship and the mother-child worship were assimilated into the cultures and religions of many countries, and they came to have various forms and names. Nimrod, the sun god, was known as Mithra in Persia, Sol in Rome, Ra or Horus in Egypt, and Apollo in Greece. Semiramis and Tammuz, who were the start of the mother-child worship, was called Isis and Horus, Venus and Dionysus, Diana and Attis, and Astaroth and Tammuz, respectively. Besides these, the image of goddess, who is holding a baby in her arms, was venerated in many countries of the world. If so, was the mother-child worship the creature of an age? which was especially welcomed only in Babylon? Surprisingly, the mother-child worship of Babylon has been passed down through the thousands of years and still exists today. In Vatican of Rome, we can find the mother-child worship in its original state.
Now, further down in the story, as Tammuz grows and becomes a man, Tammuz actually marries his mother, and they have a very sexual relationship. And that baby Tammuz and his mother Semiramis is where you get the story of Cupid. Cupid, during Valentine's Day, is how the story of Valentine's Day developed, was from Tammuz, who married a very unbiblical relationship with his mother. Okay, back to the story of Tammuz. So Tammuz, for 40 years, was a tremendous hunter, and he took the place of his father, ruling the world, and had tremendous power. But more than anything, he was a credible hunter. But unfortunately, his gift and his skill of hunting caught up with him one day, because he was killed during his 40th year by a wild boar. We now move to something that's a bit controversial but very true historically, is the Catholic Eucharist is actually the sun that is inside of that crescent moon. I'm going to show you some pictures of the actual Eucharist in different positions, and you're going to see that not only is it similar, it's identical. This is where they got the symbols from. You can see here, this is a particular object that holds the Eucharist, and I found this online, and this is what the quote said. I left off the particular church for obvious reasons, but this was their advertisement for a particular Friday. It says, Eucharistic adoration is held on the first Friday of every month for the purpose of honoring and praying to the Blessed Sacrament. Now, I don't know about you, but my Bible says to pray to the Father, our Father. Jesus said to pray to the Father. He did not say to pray to inanimate objects, whether they represent Him or not. Now, look very carefully on the right-hand side. You can see the moon, the crescent moon shaped, holding that sun or that wafer of bread. Here's a close-up of it right here. The crescent moon cradle with the sun-shaped monstrance of the Roman Catholic Church. And now you'll see that it's actually the rays of the sun go all the way around this. They didn't hide it at all. Why did they not hide it? Because this is thousands of years old. This comes right out of paganism and sun god worship, where it was the symbol of Baal and his wife Ishtar. And right here you can see the pine cone staff is another symbol found in paganism that's connected with the sun god coming out of Egypt, Osiris. It's kind of in the form of a pitchfork, you can see, where the pine cone is in the center. Now, why did they choose a pine cone? Because a pine cone represents...
Pine cone symbolism, another very popular piece of symbolism for people who consider themselves, quote, in the know. That they consider that they are spiritually aware and enlightened, they have the knowledge, they are awoken, they have wisdom, and they have transformed themselves spiritually. In many cases, it's the exact opposite. The pine cone symbolism comes after the pineal gland, which is at the center of the head. It's right here, circled in red. It's considered in the midbrain or the limbic system of the brain. It regulates, this gland regulates a lot of different functions within the individual related to perception, emotion, etc. And the gland looks like a little pine cone. It has a lot of blood flow that goes through it, and it's very much attacked as something that they seem not to want to develop or function properly. So a lot of the food, things in water are very much attacked to target this part of the central nervous system. The pine cone literally looks like a little pineal gland. Okay, the pineal gland looks like a little pine cone, I should say. This is called the Court of the Pine Cone, and it is at the Vatican. That's where that pine cone is at. It is surrounded by two peacocks. Peacocks are another big symbol in alchemy. They represent alchemical transformation. Again, the pine cone represents awakening, resurrection, or transmutation, spiritual transmutation. Now below it, there is a black empty sarcophagus. right down there below on the left-hand side. As you go up these steps in the court of the pine cone to the other side of it, from this image perspective, that's what you will see. And behind it, there is an empty sarcophagus. Now, they're basically throwing this symbolism right in your face. You know, we are the resurrected ones. We are the ones who have come out of darkness and into light. We have the knowledge. We understand how the awakening process works. We understand how this activity of the brain that people don't even understand and whose functions are essentially shut down due to the horrible nutrition and all kinds of pollutants in their food and water. We know how that works, you know, and we have done that transformation to ourselves, but that's not for you. You know, we're going to sequester that and keep it to ourselves and keep it here. And they never mention this. You'll never hear about this by the Vatican. But just go on Google Images and, you know, you'll see tons of images of the type court of the pine cone. You have a lot of tourist images that just take pictures of it. Of course, here you see the Pope in his astrotheological regalia here.
The fish head miters that they wear are the representative of the fish head miters that were worn by the Sumerian priests and the priests of Babylon.
The Abgal.
Yes.
That's right.
They served in the temple of a goddess named Nanshi.
Yes, and it specifically references who we know as Dagon.
Yes.
And he was known as Oannes to the Greeks.
Yeah.
And this was, according to myth, an individual, a hybrid person, a half fish, half man thing that came out of the sea and began to instruct mankind in the lost knowledge.
But at the base of it is the pine cone right there in his hand. I circle it right there. In symbolic iconography throughout the ancient world, the pine cone is revered. It's always a symbol of the transformation of a god. Often the god is giving that spiritual essence or knowledge to humanity. Here you see it in the Akkadian tradition of one of their gods, a clearly non-human looking entity. Here it is in the Babylonian tradition.
Because this staff goes all the way back to ancient sun god worship, where it represented power and authority of the gods, you see. And this is a close-up of that staff right here, where the pine cone is embedded right in the staff itself. Let's move on to another symbol. This is the symbol of the trident. The trident is the devil's pitchfork. It really is a symbol of Satan, of the horns of Satan. It's an ancient satanic and pagan hand gesture called the trident. We find this in archaeology all over the place. Whenever you get into any kind of society of sun god worship, you find the trident everywhere. You see it in ancient Babylon. It was placed in the hands of all the pagan sun gods. All the pagan gods and pharaohs had some sort of trident, a staff, that they would be connected to power and authority of the gods. The most famous one, of course, is Neptune's trident. We call it the devil's pitchfork, and that's where it comes from. It's just not a drawing that someone made up. This has history built into it of where these things come from. Now, if you move forward in time, or during the same time period, excuse me, you're going to find another symbol that is even more important. As a matter of fact, you're going to see two symbols in this picture. This is a pagan statue of Jupiter that has been renamed St. Peter. You also see what is baby Jesus, supposed to be baby Jesus, is none other than baby Tammuz. And how do we know it's not Jesus? Because you see trident all over the place. You see the trident symbol in the hand of the infant Jesus, along with the tridents coming out of the statue's head. You'll see three tridents, two coming off the sides of the head and one coming off the top of the head. This is not baby Jesus, ladies and gentlemen. This is a pagan sun god, Tammuz, from the story of Baal, Nimrod, and Semiramis, ended up being Cupid in today's Valentine's Day. And right here is the ancient Babylonian altar for the sun god Baal, and its main symbol is the 8-pointed star, which can be depicted as two 4-point stars built inside of one another as the solar wheel. We see the same solar wheel sunburst over a Buddhist temple in Thailand. Here's a monastery, St. Ignatius, where the solar wheel or sunburst is depicted in the floor tiles. Here's the face of a child, which is of course Tammuz, within the fertility symbol of the sun's rays on a Roman Catholic altar. The same exact symbol is shown in a face of the Babylonian sun god on a pulpit in a Roman Catholic church in Scandinavia. Okay, all this same symbol comes right out of paganism, as I've shown. Okay, this is probably one of the most fascinating pictures that I have. I zoomed in to the Vatican using Google Earth and stopped several miles above, and look what we discovered is this is the largest solar wheel on Earth. This is the court of St. Peter at the Vatican in Rome itself. Excuse me, the sun disk behind the head of this Roman Catholic statue in Westminster Cathedral in London. Where did they get the idea of sun disks behind these saints? It's because this was what was found behind the head of Jupiter and all these sun gods was the actual monstrance of the Roman Catholic Church. That halo is not a halo, that is a sun disk, and they borrowed it from paganism. We see here behind Krishna another sun disk behind his head, and this is just to show that it doesn't just happen in Catholicism, that the sun disk predates Catholicism by hundreds, even thousands of years. It was borrowed. We see it in stained glass windows behind all of the Roman Catholic saints, even Mary. And if you look carefully, you see the Sacred Heart. That Sacred Heart, even though I don't have time to go into this, even the Sacred Heart comes right out of paganism. That exact same symbol with the sun disk behind the Sacred Heart has to do with Baal and Tammuz, the sun gods. And you can see it all over the Roman Catholic Church and even in other pagan religions across the world. And where do we find this 8-pointed star, this solar wheel, this sun disk today? None other than on top of our Christmas trees. Now, I know all of us have been taught that the star on top of the Christmas tree represents the Star of Bethlehem, that the kings came in to find baby Jesus. But unfortunately, the star of the ancient pagan sun gods predates the star of the Christmas tree, the Star of Bethlehem, by over 1,000 years. They were taking the sunburst and connecting it to what you're going to learn in just a few minutes is the tree of Nimrod, and that is where we get our Christmas tree from and the star that we put on top. If you look carefully, you can see there is a tremendous significance and a similarity between the sunburst and the star that we put up there today. Here's the sun disk proudly displayed on top of Christmas trees in a mall. Matter of fact, this one doesn't even hide the fact that it's not a star, it's the sun that you're looking at. Even the 8-pointed star on top of the White House Christmas tree for everyone to see is the same 8-point star that we find in archaeology thousands of years ago connected to pagan sun god worship.
Those who were tainted with polytheism of Rome looked as if they had converted. But in actuality, it wasn't easy for them to get rid of the religious rites and institutions of worshiping the sun, the moon, and the stars, and various gods and goddesses, which they had worshipped since their forefathers. The church in Rome sought for solutions to disburden the pagans when they converted to Christianity. It was to bring in things similar to the gods that the pagans had believed into the church. They thought they would increase the number of pagan converts by doing that. For the Christian bishops introduced, with but slight alterations into the Christian worship, those rites and institutions by which formerly the Greeks and Romans and others had manifested their piety and reverence towards their imaginary deities, supposing that the people would more readily embrace Christianity if they perceived the rites handed down to them from their fathers still existing unchanged among the Christians. To attract more pagans, the church in Rome tried to Christianize various kinds of pagan gods to suit the Bible. One of the most representative things among them was accepting pagan customs of the sun god worship tradition. The church in Rome identified Jesus with the sun god. Inside of the church was decorated with various kinds of sun images, and the idea to worship the sun was established as if it were the truth of the church.
Hi, my name is Alan Lamont. I'm going to talk about the true conspiracy, the true New World Order. J. Edgar Hoover made a quotation once, and he said that this conspiracy is so monstrous that when people come face to face with it, they cannot believe it. And that is the truth. It is so monstrous, it is so wicked. When you look at the papacy, when you look at the Vatican, and you find out that it is the Vatican, it is the papacy that has put to death millions upon millions through all of these wars, even in this century, the First World War, which they organized, the Second World War, the Vietnam War, the Bosnian War, the Afghanistan War, the Iraq War, all of the wars in Syria, all of the wars that will continue to spread all across the Middle East. Just think about it. They appear to be a church. They have the cloak and the cover of being a Christian church, when in fact they are murderers. They are killers. In the Jesuit oath, they make the oath to put to death anyone. They will not regard the dignity of anyone's person. They will assassinate a president. They will assassinate a queen. They will assassinate a head of state. Anybody, whoever they may be. If they are positioned into power and they defy the orders of the agents of the Pope, they will be put to death. It's a strong message, but I'm bringing it out because people have to be woken up. The Vatican is truly evil to the core. It is truly the Church of Satan. It is truly the synagogue of Satan. And all that the Jesuits care about is positioning the Pope of Rome to be the universal monarch, to be worshipped from Jerusalem as he enters the third rebuilt Jewish temple. According to biblical prophecy, in Daniel chapter 9, he will stop the sacrifices and cause the oblations to cease, according to Matthew 24, thereby bringing the abomination that causes desolation, becoming the man-beast, the son of perdition, the false apostle, the Antichrist. This is the hidden conspiracy of the Jesuit order. Of course, in the future, Rome will be destroyed. According to Revelation chapter 18, Babylon will be destroyed. Revelation 17 explains it will be the 10 kings that will be given their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. And the Pope of Rome will then be positioned over his one world religion from Mount Moriah, from the Temple Mount, which today is already controlled by the Knights of the Equestrian Order, positioned at the Holy Sepulchre. That is what governs Jerusalem today, that knighthood, that Vatican knighthood. Every nation is governed by Vatican knighthoods. All across Europe, America, Britain, the whole earth is ruled today by the papacy, by these high knights of Rome that rule the intelligence communities across the earth. Every intelligence agency and organization is run by high-level knights of Rome. This revelation will increase on the internet. It's accelerating, and it will continue to increase and have an impact because people are finding out the truth, and they are being given true facts and real evidence to reveal that actually the Pope of Rome today is the king of the world. He is the king of all monarchs. This is no theory. And when you come face to face with this true conspiracy, many can't handle it. They really can't handle it. They go back to their low-level information and disinformation, because it's just too monstrous. The Jesuits of Rome will sin against their conscience. To be a high Jesuit of the fourth vow, you must not act according to conscience. You have to be a corpse. You have to obey the will of your superiors, ultimately under command from the Black Pope himself. The Jesuits work day and night, year after year after year, to bring about this one world government, and they have accomplished this. This is the truth. This is why President Kennedy was assassinated in the open by Jackie Kennedy, who was trained by the Jesuits from, a Jesuit convent all the way through her life, and obviously then she was sent to Paris to be trained by the CIA to ultimately assassinate John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who was a 4th-degree Knight of Columbus who defied the Jesuits. So he had to be removed. That's why his brother Bobby was destroyed, because they would not allow him to even have the possibility of being elected. That's why Lyndon Johnson stepped down, knowing he could not run against the Kennedy. The whole bloodline was wiped clean. And also, as a warning to everyone else, they killed Onassis' son. They killed, the son of Jackie Onassis Kennedy. They do this to the bloodlines. They wipe out their sons. They wipe out their bloodlines as a warning. And this is why Kennedy was killed in the open. I've explained that in previous material and videos, but I'm bringing it out again, just to make you understand how much power these Jesuits have. Not just to use Jackie the way they used it in the limousine, but to cover it up with the Dallas police, the FBI, and the CIA. That whole event in Dealey Plaza was a staged event by the CIA. It was filled with agents of the CIA. So this is the true conspiracy. What can be done about it? Well, the only thing that can be done is actually to wake up as many people as possible in the time that we have on the internet, to get this revelation out to as many people as are truly seeking the truth, that are truth seekers. Many people, are quite content with low-level revelation. They're quite content just studying Masonic orders, just studying this Vatican knighthood and this area, and looking at all of these organizations. And they get distracted by the Trilateral Commission. They get distracted by the Council on Foreign Relations. They get distracted by the Royal Institute of International Affairs and the Bilderbergs and the Club of Rome and many other organizations ruled by the Jesuits of Rome. And they stop there. And they never go higher to look at the Jesuit general himself, the Black Pope. He is the actual Pope of Rome. He is the man behind the man. He is the one on the throne. He is the one controlling the popes of Rome. That's why Pope John Paul I was poisoned, because he wanted to expose and really just, remove the power of the Jesuits. But he could not. He found out too late, that he couldn't do that. But obviously with the whole Masonic P2 Lodge and the whole, CIA connection and the Mafia connection, he was a man of conscience. And for that he was killed. For even a Pope himself will be given the poison cup of Borgia. Even a Pope of Rome. So when you look at the Jesuit oath, they talk about, obeying the Pope's agents. Well, who are they claiming to obey? Their ghostly father in that oath, their spiritual father, the Father General of the Society of Jesus. He is the one that rules the papacy. And believe me, the Jesuits are not Catholics. They don't care about the papacy. They're Babylonian. Their religion is the religion of Babel and Nimrod and sun god worship. That's why on their seal you see the symbol IHS for Isis, Horus and Seb. The Babylonian Trinity of Egypt. So this is truly, a monstrous conspiracy. But the truth is coming out. And with that, people are being, really driven to expose this conspiracy. And once you start, there's no going back. It doesn't matter what the price may be, even if it means being put to death by the Jesuits, even if it means being, assassinated. It matters not. I'm a Christian. I fear God. I fear God. I do not fear men. I do not fear these men, these Jesuits, who hide in the shadows, who work through all of the intelligence organizations, who work through all the governments across the earth. And the politicians at the highest levels, they're terrified. They are really terrified of the Jesuits because they understand that they can assassinate them in the open and walk away with no exposure. They can do this. They can do it in secret or in open. It says that in the Jesuit oath, that they will make and wage relentless war, openly or in secret, against any heretic. So this is the one world government. This is what the papacy has been planning for hundreds of years. And it is truly wicked and monstrous when you look at even Adolf Hitler, who had audiences long before he came to power with Cardinal Pacelli. And also, you know, you look at the Knights of Malta, how they, you know, were involved in the signing of that Concordat, you know, to bring Hitler to power with the Catholic vote. The Bible says that the Catholic Church, well, the Great Whore, is the mother of abominations. All of these governments are abominations. They're all created by Rome. All of these fascist states, you know, that Saddam Hussein, you know, ruled, obviously being funded by the CIA and removed by the CIA. Same as Gaddafi. Same as Castro, who's, you know, a high Jesuit and ruled for nearly 50 years, who the CIA did not want to remove. No way. The only reason they moved against him was to set up Kennedy and smear Kennedy, you know, to bring about that whole Oswald operation, who was an FBI, CIA operative, you know. It's all a lie. History's a lie. Napoleon Bonaparte was serving the Jesuits. He talked a lot about the Jesuits and the power of them, how they're a military order. You will find that all through history. Even Abraham Lincoln talked of the Jesuit order and how he knew they would assassinate him. But this is hidden history. This is suppressed history. And you have to dig deep to find it. You have to dig. If you want information, then go to my blog. On my YouTube channel page, you'll see a link called Vatican New World Order. I've got lots of free PDF books. That's the first page that you will see. Lots of them on the Black Pope, on the Jesuits, by men who understood this conspiracy hundreds of years ago and 100 years ago. You know, this is a new movement. This NWO, this exposure. People are just starting to wake up. But hundreds of years ago, people understood the conspiracy of Rome to overthrow governments. You know, it wasn't called a New World Order then. You know, they just merely called it Babylon the Great. Okay, they understood that the popes of Rome were ruled by the Jesuit generals, and you know, they understood that the Illuminati was created as a front organization to infiltrate, you know, the Masonic French government and overthrow it and punish the monarchies who suppressed the Jesuits. Okay, I'm going to bring a conclusion to end now. Once again, I want to direct you to a friend of mine. He's called Eric John Phelps. I've been in contact with Eric, you know, quite a lot over the last few years, and I just highly recommend the man. You know, he's sold out. He's sold out. He's devoted to exposing the Jesuits, and you know, he's really pioneered the way in this movement on the internet. Go to his website. It's called VaticanAssassins.org. And you can look at the article section, and he's got a lot of great material there, and also just a lot of great articles. He does a lot of radio broadcasts, and you can find those on YouTube. And go to Unhived Mind, go to Craig Oxley's website. Craig deals primarily with the papal bloodlines of Italy, but lots of issues with the economy, and lots of issues with the British Crown, and you know, the Templars, and a lot of great information. You know, you'll benefit from digging into this material. Okay, my name is Alan Lamont. Thanks for listening. As always, all roads do lead to Rome, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth.